Joyce was in a tight spot when she decided to adopt a set of twins some weeks after they were born. She raised them with all the love and affection in her heart, but when they turned 18, she received the shock of a lifetime. Joyce and Diane met in college and quickly became inseparable. Their bond was so strong that it was rare to see one without the other. They even carried themselves like twin sisters, often wearing matching outfits and sporting identical hairstyles. By chance, they started dating around the same time, and the two couples frequently went on double dates, creating countless memories together. After graduating, they both settled in the same city, but pursued careers at different companies. Although they lived about 2 hours apart, they made it a point to meet regularly, sharing laughter, catching up on life, and dreaming about their future together. About 3 years into their careers, Joyce and Diane both tied the knot just 2 weeks apart. Each couple chose the different destination for their honeymoon, embarking on exciting new adventures. A few weeks after returning, Joyce and Diane met up as they always did. However, this time Diane looked noticeably worn out, with dark circles under her eyes and an air of exhaustion. Joyce immediately asked Diane what was wrong, wondering if she wasn't sleeping well, had eaten something bad, or perhaps caught the flu. Diane laughed and reassured her that she was fine, though a bit overwhelmed. She explained that work had been especially demanding, and she was struggling to keep up with the deadlines. Diane also admitted that she'd been feeling unusually sensitive lately. Joyce grew concerned, noticing how much more emotional Diane seemed compared to her usual self. Diane shared her observations with Joyce, including her increased aversion to certain smells and her selective eating habits. Recognizing the severity of the situation, Joyce suggested they visit a doctor to investigate the symptoms. They both told their husbands about it, and although the men wanted to go with them to the hospital, they couldn't because they both had to go on business trips. Early the next morning, the men dropped their wives at the hospital and left. At the medical center, the doctor asked Diane a few questions before running tests. While waiting for the results, Joyce reassured Diane that everything would be fine. About 20 minutes later, Joyce got up to use the restroom but felt lightheaded and fainted. When she regained consciousness, she found herself in a hospital bed with Diane by her side, who explained that the nurses had taken her blood for testing. An hour later, the doctor called them in and revealed they were both pregnant. Stunned, they sat in silence before bursting into laughter, hugging and crying tears of joy. Weeks later, a scan revealed Diane was expecting twins, adding even more excitement to their journey. Both women had always wanted to have twins, and even though Joyce was pregnant with only one baby, she was beyond happy for her best friend. 9 months later, the women went to the hospital to have their babies. "See you soon. Be strong. You can do it," the women told each other before they were wheeled into separate delivery rooms. Joyce endured a long, difficult labor, but relief and joy filled her when she heard her baby's first cry. She held her newborn briefly before falling asleep. Upon waking, she asked the doctor about Diane, but his cheerful demeanor turned somber. Sensing something was wrong, Joyce, despite her exhaustion, sat up in panic. "Tell me Diane is okay. Tell me my best friend is fine," she pleaded. The doctor shook his head, explaining they had done their best, but Diane hadn't survived, though her twins had. Devastated, Joyce refused to believe it, screaming in anguish and hoping it was just a bad dream. But it wasn't. Once she regained her composure, she asked to see Diane's babies. Though heartbroken, she found solace in knowing Diane had left behind a piece of herself. Joyce asked the doctor for permission to try breastfeeding the babies, and he agreed as the twins were struggling to take formula. For days, Joyce waited for Diane's husband, Frank, to show up and make plans for the twins, but he didn't. In the end, the hospital had no choice but to let Joyce go home with the babies. After a week at her house, Joyce decided to take the twins to their father, Frank. To her shock, Frank refused to let them in, declaring he wanted nothing to do with the babies. "But they're your flesh and blood," Joyce protested. "They didn't do anything wrong. Diane said you couldn't wait to meet them." Frank, bitter and grieving, responded, "If they hadn't been born, Diane would still be here. They took her from me." He then revealed plans to leave the city and told Joyce she could keep the babies if she wanted. Frank's words shattered Joyce. Looking at the twins' innocent faces, she realized they deserved far better than a father who blamed them for their mother's death. Determined to honor Diane's memory, Joyce decided to raise the twins herself, giving them the love and care their mother would have wanted. When she returned home with the kids, she told her husband, Stephen, about her desire to adopt the twins, and he told her she had his full support. Within a few months, the adoption process was completed, and Joyce officially welcomed the twins, Brandon and Alexander, into her home. However, what she did next will shock you. Joyce decided to raise her biological son, Tyler, and the adopted twins, Brandon and Alexander, as triplets. Apart from family and a few relatives, everyone believed she had given birth to all three. She dressed them alike and encouraged them to do everything together. Her efforts paid off as the boys grew up loving one another and forming an unbreakable bond. However, as teenagers, their physical differences became more noticeable. Brandon and Alexander looked nearly identical, while Tyler appeared different. Curious, the boys asked Joyce about it, but she attributed it to genetics. Though her explanation satisfied them for the moment, Joyce grew increasingly anxious. What if they discovered the truth? Would they hate her for lying? Would they forgive her? These questions haunted her, and she silently prayed the truth would remain hidden. But when the triplets turned 18, something happened that threatened to unravel everything. Tyler fell sick. He had no appetite, swollen legs, and abdominal pain. One morning, a few months after his 18th birthday, he was walking down the stairs when he suddenly became dizzy and passed out. Brandon and Alexander, who were the only ones at home, quickly rushed him to a reputable hospital. At the hospital, the doctors carried out various tests, and the results showed that Tyler needed an immediate liver transplant. Guess what his brothers did? They immediately agreed to donate a portion of their liver. The physician conducted a blood test to determine who was a better match for Tyler, but when the results came back, the twins were beyond stunned. They had a different blood type compared to Tyler. Feeling deceived, Brandon and Alexander confronted Joyce later that day and demanded an explanation. "Why didn't you tell us that Tyler was adopted? We don't have the same blood type, and the doctor confirmed that we're not biologically related." Alexander protested. Joyce, unable to keep up the facade, swallowed hard before confessing everything that led them to that point. After she finished explaining, Brandon and Alexander gaped at her in disbelief. They couldn't believe that they were the ones who were actually adopted, and that their father had turned his back on them. How would Tyler react to this? And what would the boys do next? Keep watching to find out. Several weeks after the life-saving transplant, Tyler recovered, and his brothers told him the whole truth. He was also upset with his mother for withholding such important information from them. Determined not to sit idly by, the boys made a decision that would leave Joyce completely stunned. Just a few weeks later, the trio quietly snuck out of the house in the dead of night. It wasn't until Joyce went into their room to call them for breakfast that she discovered they were gone. For the next 3 days, she was beside herself, desperately searching for them. On the 4th day, Joyce sat on the living room sofa, lost in thought, her heart heavy with worry. Suddenly, the front door creaked open, and the triplets walked in. With tears streaming down their faces, they approached their mother. The twins, choking back sobs, confessed that they had gone to see their father. However, he dismissed them, insisting he had moved on a long time ago and that they should do the same. The boys apologized to Joyce, expressing their gratitude for everything she had done. They told her they loved her and always would. Overwhelmed with emotion, the delighted mother accepted their apologies, and they all came together in a big, warm embrace. I'm really keen to know your thoughts on this story, so please don't hesitate to share your insights in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and found it engaging, I invite you to subscribe to our channel for more similar content. Feel free to share this video. Take good care of yourselves, and I'm excited to connect with you in our future videos.